Good evening and welcome back to MesmePolitics. My name is Toby Lapati Mesme and I am live with you until 7:30 tonight with all the latest, as per usual, from UK and US politics in the last 24 hours from that unique leftist perspective. Just gone 7 o'clock on Boxing Day, the 26th of December 2020, and we have got a jam-packed show for you. There's always stuff going on, it never stops. You can get in touch throughout in the chat, and you can follow me on Twitter at TobyJoshuaUK. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming back for another day of this show. So coming up towards the end of the show, we'll be talking about how Boris Johnson has pretty much caved in, for want of a better word, on fish. He has made pretty major concessions to the EU, which blow apart, we delivered everything that, people said they wanted to do in the referendum. It's sort of blown to bits when we actually look about what he's done on fisheries. Also going to be talking about the lapse in unemployment benefits in the US that has Donald Trump's name all over it. Who's to blame? Who came up with the idea of $2,000 stimulus checks? And who should we be most angry at to least angry at? We'll have to come up with some sort of ratio because they're all partially to blame. But who's the most to blame? Hint, it's more Donald Trump than the Democrats when we look at this current dilemma. I mean, the biggest stinkers of them all are obviously the House Republicans who wouldn't vote for the measure that even Trump supports. But anyway, first on the show, Keir Starmer is facing a revolt from the internal ranks of the Labour Party over his decision to vote in favour of Boris Johnson's admittedly weak tea Brexit deal. He's whipping the Labour Party, that same Labour Party he declared was the party of Remain, little more than a year ago, whipping it to vote for a hard Brexit in Parliament. Now, this is the policy I would support. I think this is quote-unquote smart politics from Keir Starmer, from a purely tactical perspective. I'm not saying Labour should endorse a hard Brexit. I'm just saying in this situation they should vote for the hard Brexit deal as opposed to no deal. It's better than abstaining. Most things are better than abstaining. But let's look into this. It is very much a tale of contrived hypocrisy. We have played part of this on the show before, but here's Keir Starmer talking about why he is supporting the, quote, inadequate Brexit deal put forward by Boris Johnson.
The choice facing Parliament, the choice facing Labour, is now whether to accept that deal or to reject it. The deal is a thin agreement. It does not provide adequate protections for British manufacturing, our financial services, creative industries, or workplace rights. It is not the deal that the government promised. Far from it. And there are serious questions about the government's preparedness for the new arrangements. As ever, leaving everything to the last minute has made it even more difficult for businesses to be ready. A better deal could have been negotiated. But I accept that that option has now gone. The chance for renegotiation is over. There are just two paths now left for our country: to move forward with a deal or without one. No deal is simply not an option. The social, economic and political consequences would be devastating. Jobs would be put at risk. Businesses would collapse. Investment would dry up. Our national security would be threatened. The disruption that we've seen at the port of Dover in recent days would be the tip of the iceberg. And the cumulative effect, on top of the worst recession of any major economy, would be unimaginable. Labour is against no deal, firmly and absolutely. And the British people would never forgive us if we enabled a no deal outcome. There are some that argue that Labour should be neutral on this issue, to abstain. I do not agree. Leadership is about taking the tough decisions in the national interest. It's about being a serious, responsible opposition, a government in waiting. This is the deal that Labour will inherit in 2024. It's something we will build on compared to the chaos of no deal. The public would expect a Labour government to make it work. And the EU would expect us to make it work and to use it to protect our shared interests, including, of course, the peace process in Northern Ireland. At a moment of such national significance, it is just not credible for Labour to be on the sidelines. And that's why I can say today that when this deal comes before Parliament, Labour will accept it and vote for it.
So there you have it. Labour voting for Boris Johnson's Brexit deal, which is particularly ironic coming from Leader of the Opposition Keir Starmer, because he is very much one of the pivotal figures that pushed Labour further and further and further away from respecting the referendum result and further and further and further in favour of a second referendum, and indeed, following that, explicitly supporting Remain on that ballot, which he did, by all accounts, to endear himself. You know, it wasn't great principle. It was to endear himself with the Labour membership, who are overwhelmingly for Remain. When I say overwhelmingly, we're not talking like Scotland overwhelmingly for Remain. We're talking 95% or something ridiculous like that in favour of Remain. Last I checked anyway, maybe it's in the high 80s. The first thing to note is the utter hypocrisy, right? That's the thing that jumps out to me. The utter hypocrisy of Keir Starmer being the one, and Labour MPs, many Labour MPs, you know, Rachel Reeves or, I don't know, people in the shadow cabinet, people in the Labour Party who are praising Keir Starmer for this act of compromise and this act of leadership, when these are the same sort of people who basically called Jeremy Corbyn Nigel Farage 2.0 any time he strayed anywhere towards respecting the result of the referendum. It was from the start, no, this is ridiculous, you know, listen to the Lib Dems more than you listen to Labour, blah, 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 blah. Why would we ever respect the referendum? This is ridiculous. So many, not all Labour establishment figures, but much of the Labourite establishment, the Blairite establishment, were overwhelmingly in favour of remaining in the EU and fought for that and used it as a bludgeon, a weapon to attack the democratically elected leadership. And now, surprise, surprise, now Jeremy Corbyn's gone, they're willing to compromise and deal with the political reality that the way to win the next election is not by being the martyrs of the Remain cause. Emily Thornberry has very much put away her blue and yellow starred dress. So, this is utterly self-defeating for anyone. If anyone's thinking of resigning from the shadow cabinet, it's utterly self-defeating. I'll read you this from The Guardian. Keir Starmer is facing a revolt from Labour frontbenchers over his decision to back the government's Brexit trade deal. The party leader has been warned that shadow ministers are poised to resign and defy a three-line whip when the House of Commons votes on the deal on Wednesday. Starmer, on Thursday, called for Labour MPs to vote for Boris Johnson's deal, saying it was a binary choice between the deal on offer or no deal. He described Johnson's deal as thin, saying it would not underpin workers' rights or adequately protect sectors such as manufacturing and the creative industries, which is broadly true. Labour MPs had urged Starmer to abstain in the vote, saying he would be unable to hold the government to account for its economic consequences if Labour had supported it. Others, including some of those who refused to vote to trigger the Article 50 process of leaving the EU, so very reasonable people, of course, would like Labour to vote against. Sources confirm that several frontbenchers are prepared to step down over the vote, while many others will support Starmer's position, while wishing he would abstain. Shadow cabinet ministers, including the Shadow Chancellor, Annalisa Dodds, the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Bridget Phillipson, and the Shadow International Trade Secretary, Emily Thornberry, are known to have expressed concerns about the idea of supporting the deal, although they are expected to abide by collective responsibility. Okay, so, utterly self-defeating to resign from the Shadow Cabinet over this. Just suck it up. A government was just elected on a mandate of hard Brexit. We've got to deal with it. We've got to deal with the political reality. The surefire way to lose the next election is to look like you're still trying to block Brexit with many of the same cast of characters, you know, your Starmer, your Thornberry, doing what they did so excellently, which turned out so great when voters went to the polls in December of 2019, right? That was only a year ago. We're not suddenly a really hard Remain country. Of course we're not. So ridiculous, self-defeating. Just stay, all right? I know people are unhappy about it, but just stay. Let's let the thing die. Let's let the fight die. Let's now talk about a post-Brexit relationship with the EU, something we can actually affect and something people will listen to, although please don't mention Brexit much, as opposed to actually going on about the arcane process of Brexit. In the public's minds, Brexit is done, and anyone who's continuing to draw this out, very much part of the problem. It's a failing of the political class that we've got to the point where Brexit is so exhausting people can't bear to hear it. That's on the political class. Now get on with it and just let what people voted for in the election, voted for in the referendum, just happen. We live with the consequences, right? It's the least worst option. Abstaining looks weak. Voting against is worse. This, you know, the Tories own this 100%. Let me put it that way. They are trumpeting this. This is one of the this may be what keeps their ratings afloat. So if this goes to pot, rest assured the blame will be firmly, uniquely with Boris Johnson and with the British Conservative Party and with the current cabinet. 100%. In some cases, it's right, you don't want to be complicit, you don't want to vote for the welfare bill, etc., etc. But in this case, look, you vote with it. It's an expression to leave voters. I know Remain voters aren't happy about that, and Labour's younger, vibrant base, new base, will not like this. But you win them back with radical, progressive policy. In this case, just get it done. Vote. Can you see the headlines? Starmer blocks Brexit. Chicken Starmer abstains. Just vote for it. The Tories will own this 100%, and Labour can lambast them about the consequences in the next election, if that's, the biggest story. I question whether it will be, but if so, if we're all living out of cardboard boxes, it will not be pinned on Labour. This is leadership from Labour. Again, I want to see more of this from Keir Starmer, taking a clear stand. Whether or not I agree with it, just take the clear stand. Have some principle. People like that. People like that in Jeremy Corbyn. Have some principle and stand up for things. This is an expression of a great triumph for the Vote Leave organisation, right? The right-wing Vote Leave project in the referendum. That now, basically every party, save the Liberal Democrats, have bowed to hard Brexit is now the softest we're going to get. Sort of crazy. When has a project been so politically successful? Of course, plenty of it was built on lies, but that's a huge, 4-year transformation of British politics. Huge. 4.5 years now since that referendum and that horrifically divisive campaign. Now, unemployment aid is set to lapse on Saturday as Donald Trump's plans for relief remain unclear. I'll read this to you from the New York Times. Expanded unemployment benefits were set to lapse for millions of struggling Americans on Saturday, a day after President Trump expressed more criticism of a $900 billion pandemic relief bill that was awaiting his signature and would extend them. The sprawling economic relief package that Congress passed, with overwhelming bipartisan support, would extend the amount of time that people can collect unemployment benefits until March and revive supplemental unemployment benefits for millions of Americans at $300 a week on top of the usual state benefit. If Mr. Trump signs the bill on Saturday, states will need time to reprogram their computer systems to account for the new law, according to Michelle Evermore of the National Employment Law Project. But unemployed workers will still be able to claim the benefits. Further delays could prove more costly. States cannot pay out benefits for weeks that begin before the bill is signed, meaning that if the president does not sign the bill by Saturday, benefits will not restart until the first week of January, but they will still end in mid-March, effectively trimming the extension to 10 weeks from 11. Mr. Trump blindsided lawmakers on Tuesday when he hinted that he may veto the measure, which he decided at the last minute was unsatisfactory. The most pressing issue prompted by the president's delay was the fate of unemployment benefits. At least a temporary lapse in those benefits is now inevitable. This was about a fight, right? $600 was, the shockingly inadequate amount we got set for the unemployment benefits. Trump was advocating $2,000 out of the blue, and that's where we are now. Donald Trump cares not one jot about Americans that need unemployment benefits. He does not care even a smidge. The guy is a sociopath. Anyone who thinks he's doing this out of the goodness of his heart or a change of character suddenly is completely naive and wholeheartedly misguided. This is a tantrum. Others have brought this $2,000 idea to the fore. Donald Trump has co-opted it. He is not the white knight in shining armour. He is the toddler having a tantrum because they can't get everything they want. He's used it as an opportunity to rail against aid going to other countries. He's used it as an argument just to basically scream, again, his usual function, which is basically voicing the anger a lot of people feel at the political class, but without doing anything about it, and then finding handy scapegoats that aren't the actual propagators of the issue. It's a tantrum. Don't let Donald Trump own this idea. $2,000 is the minimum, but we need to pass something now. This was passing. Just let this thing pass and get on to the next one, right? I'm the first person who's absolutely fuming that $600 is what we've got. It's puny. It's pathetic. But it passed, and now we're just jamming it up. The result is not going to be $2,000 checks. If it is, I'll congratulate President Trump, but it won't be. It will just be a longer time until people get their $600 checks. This should have gone out by now. We should be processing this, get it over the line. There's talk of a pocket veto, which is where the president basically sits on it. Ridiculous. Playing politics with people's lives and livelihoods. It is an abhorrent disgrace. And shame on Trump for that. Absolutely shame on Trump. Because he's not helping anyone. He's just sticking his fat arse in places that don't concern him, basically. That's where we've hit on this. Now, how does the fishing industry feel about Boris Johnson's Brexit deal? How many promises made in the referendum were kept? This is a report from Global News. Let's have a listen.
COVID-19 cases are soaring across the United Kingdom. According to the Office for National Statistics, 1 in 85 people in England has the virus. It's believed half of all new cases could be the new, more contagious strain. London is the country's COVID-19 hotspot. It has the highest percentage of people testing positive. Infections are also growing in Wales and Northern Ireland. But in Scotland, the percentage of people with COVID-19 has dropped to 1 in 140. Trucks are once again moving across the English Channel. So far, only 3 out of more than 2,300 truck drivers have tested positive for COVID-19. They must receive a negative test result to enter France from Britain. The new rule has resulted in thousands of truck drivers being stuck along one of the UK's most important trade routes. The backlog is expected to take days to clear. There is finally an end to the Brexit saga. The UK has reached a deal with the European Union. The agreement comes 1,645 days after Britain's voted to leave the EU. The referendum was contentious. 48% voted to remain. Brexit forced 2 British prime ministers to resign, David Cameron in 2016 and Theresa May in 2019. Boris Johnson took over leading the country and Brexit negotiations. And as Crystal Gumansing explains, tonight, he's celebrating a major win.
1 tweet, 4 words, 7 days before deadline. Getting a trade deal done wasn't easy, but on Christmas Eve, Prime Minister Boris Johnson delivered.
For the first time since 1973, we will be an independent coastal state with full control of our waters, with the UK's share of fish in our waters rising substantially from roughly half today to closer to 2/3 in 5.5 years' time.
The Prime Minister's Thai choice shows his dedication to fishing rights. It was a pillar of the Leave campaign, but a bit of a red herring. The fishing industry accounts for less than 1% of the UK's economy. Still, it was a sticking point during talks.
At the end of a successful negotiations journey, I normally feel joy. But today, I only feel quite satisfaction and, frankly speaking, relief.
The deal grants the UK access to one of the largest free trade blocs in the world. In return, Britain agreed to what's known as the level playing field, adherence to environmental and worker standards laid out by the European Union.
Although we have left the EU, this country will remain culturally, emotionally, historically, strategically, geologically attached to Europe.
The opposition Labour leader says the deal offers no protection for financial services, manufacturing, or creative industries.
It is not the deal that the government promised. Far from it.
The deal still needs to be approved by EU nations and the UK government. Johnson expects a vote will take place here on December 30th. After that, the pressure is on the Prime Minister and his Conservatives to unveil a vision for Britain now that it has a deal to continue working with EU member states and the freedom to branch out and build other bridges. Robin?
Crystal Gurmansing in London. Thanks, Crystal.
Okay. So, the National Federation of Fishermen's Organisations says fisheries were sacrificed. The UK's leading fishing industry body has accused the government of bottling it over the Brexit deal with the EU after details were published on Boxing Day morning. Barry Dees, the chief executive of the National Federation of Fishermen's Organisations, said the deal had secured, quote, just a fraction of what the UK has a right to under international law, arguing that fishing had been sacrificed for other national objectives. Saying further, lacking moral, legal or political negotiating leverage on fish, the EU made the whole trade deal contingent on a UK surrender on fisheries. In the endgame, the Prime Minister made the call and caved in on fish, despite the rhetoric and assurances that he would not do what Ted Heath did in 1973. Under the deal, new quotas reducing the EU's share by 25% are due to be phased in over 5.5 years, and a quarter of the EU's catch by value will be repatriated to UK-flagged vessels during the same period. While Dees said the deal will, quote, inevitably be seen by the fishing industry as a defeat, he said the government had been successful in having fought off the EU's attempts to tie the UK back into common fisheries policy-like arrangements. He also said this would allow the UK to, quote, develop and apply its own fisheries management systems tailored to its own fisheries. Dees has previously said that the EU benefited disproportionately from free access to fish in UK waters and unbalanced quota shares agreed in 1983. The UK Fisheries Chief Executive, Jane Sandell, said, we're pleased that the UK-EU deal will bring some kind of certainty to parts of our industry, although we're still looking for the prodigious amount of fish we were promised. Prodigious amounts of fish we were promised, and for us it changes nothing. The government must now urgently turn its attention to striking a good deal with Norway and other third countries if we are to be able to fish in the distant waters from January the 1st. Now, this is where reality kicks in to a great extent. Johnson is already beginning to betray the various constituent parts of the hard Brexit coalition, if you like, because the reality is the hard Brexit Johnson wants to deliver is not the hard Brexit people thought he was going to deliver. Of course, he will happily throw these people under the bus because he doesn't believe in anything. He has no conviction. He doesn't care about fish. All he cares about is his own political expediency, and if throwing some fishermen under the bus in the long run won't hurt him politically, but will get this deal over the line, which will help him politically, he'll do it. He really does not care. He will throw anyone under the bus as long as it won't politically damage him. If it ever looks like he's being cautious as not to betray anyone, it's only because it's politically expedient for him. He does what's politically expedient. He does not care what people think or what he's promised. Again, as long as it doesn't hurt him politically. His vision for what the Tories want to do, the Tory vision, what they want to do with a hard Brexit is entirely different from what was sold to the public in the referendum by Vote Leave, but also, crucially, in the general election. This is not about raising standards, about buccaneering Britain on the tidal seas. This is not about empowering fishermen in Britain. This is not about even cutting immigration. What this is about is a race to the bottom in living standards, in environmental rights, in regulations. Whether they'll be successful in that is another matter, but that is what they want to do. In their heart of hearts, that is what right-wing hard Brexiteers want. Okay? That's that wing of capital that supported Leave, that's what they're out for. You cannot trust the right-wing snake oil salesman when it comes to Brexit. Your Nigel Farages, your Boris Johnsons. You can't trust these people. You can never trust these people. They don't have your best interests at heart. They're not interested in delivering a Brexit even remotely orientated to working people and not even close to a workers' Brexit. They're interested in a hedge fund manager's Brexit. And that's why there is a real big difference. It really matters who's driving the intellectual debate and who is running the show as Brexit happens. That's why I'm not jumping for joy at leaving the EU. Of course, I'm glad we're leaving the EU, but the people in power right now and the circumstances make this far from ideal. Tory Brexit, the Tories' vision of Brexit that they whisper in hushed tones, did not win a referendum, or an election for that matter. Hard Brexit barely won either, right? Get Brexit Done won an election, and Take Back Control won a referendum. We're not taking back control, we're handing control from one set of elites to another set of elites. At the same time, although it doesn't go amiss that, we'll have more democratic control over things, that's always a good thing. Get Brexit Done was not get Brexit done by slashing your rights or selling out fishermen. This is, the reality bites quite hard for these people because they've sold people a pack of lies, basically. Coming up to 7:30, and that is it from me today. I hope you've enjoyed. I've definitely enjoyed. I hope you had a good Christmas. I hope you had a nice Boxing Day as well. I will say it, sometimes Boxing Day is honestly, it can be better than Christmas Day itself. In some cases, not all cases, but Boxing Day, you get to enjoy the presents. There's less of the faffing about with whatever the new thing is that you got. And, it's good. I want to quickly play you now a voice note I did at 4:40 p.m. on Christmas Day about not watching the Queen's speech. Because we haven't actually mentioned the Queen's speech, so, summarise my views in 47 seconds. Here you go. I didn't watch the Queen's speech today. I never watch the Queen's speech at Christmas, and I'm proud of that. I have nothing against the Queen. I just derive nothing from a speech from an unelected head of state in a position that is a relic of a bygone era of imperialism and empire. And I think it's quite worrying that, among many other reasons, someone was denied the ability to lead this country and change it for the better because they don't watch the Queen's speech on Christmas Day. That says quite a lot, and it's quite worrying. I didn't watch the... We're going again, are we? No, I do stand by that, right? I'm trying to find that clip. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Have a look. This is the one. Yeah. This is what I was talking about. You will be eliminated. I really hope this didn't sway anyone either way in the election, but maybe it
Do you
did.
sit down to watch the Queen's speech, Mr Corbyn?
It's on the morning usually. We have it on some of the time.
It's not on in the morning. It's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when everybody watches it.
Well, our Christmas is sometimes...
You don't watch it, do you, Mr Corbyn?
Lots to do. I enjoy the presence of my family and friends around on Christmas, obviously like everybody else does, and I also visit a homeless shelter.
Will you apologise?
Oh, what an awful man. Visits a homeless shelter. Oh, gotta vote him out, yeah. Oh, this is a hellscape. Thank you for listening today. We are back tomorrow, 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. I've been Toby Mesme. This has been MesmePolitics, and I'll see you very soon. Have a lovely rest of your Boxing Day and have a lovely tomorrow.